My name is Steve Fischer. I'm a video journalist with CBOT, the CBC local station in Ottawa. I've been a video journalist for 2 years now, and before that for probably 10 or 12 years I was your standard, regular old TV journalist. Especially as a video journalist, I find I have to have all my research, be much more heavily researched, plan out my questions a lot more than I did before as a straight journalist. I spend a lot of time on the phone and a lot of time researching on the internet and other sources, newspapers, whatever.
There's a meeting tonight in the PN over development of a big box.
I'd be interested in that.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, I'll check into the funeral and see, although it's a long shot.
It's probably just a VO, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Since the other half of your brain has to always be thinking the technical side, you don't want to be caught by surprise or just not know where you're taking the story out in the field, so you want to get as much as you can, be heavily researched before you go out. Did we get a picture of the boy?
No. We just took it off the paper. I don't know where they got it. They may have gotten it from the school.
A 10-year-old boy was killed on Sunday crossing a fairly busy street. It is most likely that he was crossing on a red, although I've heard some indication that there's a chance that he was crossing on a green. He was hit by a patrol car. Steve Fischer, CBC. I'm doing something on this follow-up today on the accident that killed that 10-year-old boy on Sunday. It's been handed over to SIU, right? Do you have a contact number with them? I just wanted to see the status of the investigation. It's worth checking to see if the family wants to talk about it. Yesterday I tried to get at it and the family wasn't up to talking. Yes?
Got to hear on the phone. He says you can talk to the family.
Yeah. This is my contact on this story. Hi. They actually want some coverage on this, or what was your read on it? Yes, is Radha Dividend? Yes, it's Steve Fischer from CBC calling. We are interested in covering the funeral today, if possible, and I just wanted to find out how the family felt about that. Vivek's parents do not want to speak. Okay, that's fine, and I will certainly keep our distance from them. Now, do you have a picture of Vivek that we could use? Just a little background information. He knew his peers of the road. I was talking to Public Affairs. They said to give you a ring, see if you could help me. I'm trying to find out if there have been any other injuries or fatalities involving children pedestrians lately or since January. Can you think of any? Yeah, and 2 pedestrian fatalities this year so far. Injuries, there probably have been some injuries. Would it be fair to say like a dozen a year or more or less? Or? I'm starting to plot it out. I have a few minutes, so I'm figuring out what elements I'll get. I'll probably interview a couple of family members and we'll get some sort of a procession shot. But did you know directly if Vivek knew the rules of the road? And
But yeah, I'm sure he knew the rules of the road just like any other kid his age would, but beyond that, the details of the incident, we really don't know.
Well, probably the best story here is to, you know, as a warning to other kids, I've tried to compile some statistics on how often this happens. It's a worthwhile story to do. Tripod I find valuable, you know, like I mean, for this kind of stuff, there's something to be said for being far away and then using your zooming right in. You know, you're not in their face, and you get better television because they're not worried about you, they're not thinking about you, and they're just being themselves. Okay. Now, can I do an interview with you about those issues? And you know what I'd probably like to do is just illustrate it by getting you to show me about the pointing and walking. I'm going to put a wireless microphone on you, okay, and then we'll do a little walkthrough. Okay, sounds good. I don't like to set things up and create sequences that aren't really there, and people can see through that. Okay. I usually, you know, chat up quite a bit with the person, what kind of visuals we might get and what they're up to. while I'll never be the same quality of shooter as some of our guys, I often have very distinctive way I want to tell my story visually.
At the end of the simulation, there's a coup.
Different stories require different styles. I did a story last fall. Much of that story I built around a simulation that they created at this resort where it was taken over in a coup, and all these aid workers had to respond to that.
The delegates may face great personal risk in their work. How they respond in situations like this could determine not only their own survival, but the survival of many others. Get up!
Doing that in setup shots where you create sequences just wouldn't have cut it.
Here, they must decide if they will help a wounded soldier who wants to keep his
But you wanted to give people the whole thing so that they don't feel you're editing what they're viewing at all.
Listen, we are a humanitarian organization. We cannot take weapons in the car.
It works well to cut from a wide shot to a tight shot, but sometimes it's best to just leave in a wild zoom, and it depends on the kind of story.
What a trip it will be.
I did a story on a family that's sailing around the world a year ago, and I caught up with them just as they were leaving Ottawa in their sailboat, a mother, father, and 3 children. That I end up doing much more in sequences and specific shots.
They will certainly have lots to write about. Diane has been commissioned to chronicle their adventure in the Ottawa Citizen.
In that situation, you know, I said, well, let's, you know, I'll catch you doing your next writing. She sits down in the boat, and I film that and do it all on locked off camera.
But Diane's journals, which form the basis for a weekly article in the Ottawa Citizen, betray some doubts about the trip. Recently, she wrote that it's been more work than fun.
No, I wouldn't say we're having second doubts, or that it's ever seriously crossed our mind that this is not going to be fun. It's been more a little bit of frustration that it has been as much work as it has been so far.
Their hand out.
Okay.
And
Let's do that for real. The process isn't entirely real in that you get them to stop and back up and do it again. It's always something we fight in television, trying to make it real.
we make sure that there's nothing stuck, no hazards.
This is the second pedestrian fatality involving an This is the second pedestrian fatality involving a young child in our region in the past 3 years. Most of the time I vary my style. I just go with my gut instinct. Sometimes it's, you know, I use a tripod throughout a whole story. I never take it off a tripod. Other times it's never off my shoulder. It depends on the story and just your gut instincts of which works best.
No idea. I'm sure he knew the rules of the road just like any other kid his age would, but beyond that, the details of the incident.
Your story should be built around what you're seeing in the viewing suite. And so maybe you change your story based on you know, what kind of video content you have, or at least structure it differently. Well, I have a real prejudice for using clips and actuality to drive your story. It's a constant battle how much of your voiceover you use. I think it's often important to keep a story from getting confusing. You know, your actualities don't end up being exactly what you thought they were going to be, or they don't. The person isn't articulate enough to drive the story, and so you need to fill in some of the gaps.
They came to say goodbye to a 10-year-old boy today. Parents, relatives, and many friends of Vivek Devadan. Many friends of Vivek Devadan.
Anytime something like this happens, it's always hard.
I'm going to cut to the picture of the kid at the end there, and we can cover that one through the clip.
A funeral was held today for a 10-year-old boy struck and killed by a police cruiser on Sunday. Vivek Devadan was remembered as an intelligent, happy child. Family members tell Newsday's Steve Fischer they still can't understand how the accident happened.
They came to say goodbye to a 10-year-old boy today. Parents, relatives, and many friends of Vivek Devadan.
Anytime something like this happens, it's always hard. Just, you know, it's no different than anyone else's child. It's, you know, it's terrible no matter how you want to cut it or look at it.
Vivek died after he was hit by a police car at a West End intersection Sunday afternoon. Witnesses say the boy was crossing on a red light. Because a police officer was involved, the Special Investigations Unit has been called in. This is the second pedestrian fatality involving a child in our region in the past 3 years. But safety officials say up to 100 children are injured each year in pedestrian accidents because they don't follow the rules of the road. It's more than simply crossing with the light at the intersection.
So we stick our hand out to make ourselves bigger. We look all ways to make sure that there's no traffic moving that shouldn't be, and then we start to cross the road. And as we cross the road, we make sure that there's nothing coming, no hazards. Well, we don't encourage running because running, the kids get excited sometimes. If they start to run, they could trip.
Vivek's family says he knew enough to be cautious in traffic and can't understand what happened Sunday.
I'm sure he knew the rules of the road just like any other kid his age would, but beyond that, the details of the incident, we really don't know and can't really comment on it.
Vivek's school is also planning to hold a memorial service, although no date has been set. Steve Fischer, CBC News, Ottawa.